Another competitive room is the wide receiver room. Their 4th round pick was Jalen Royals out of Utah State. Outside receiver, 4.42 40, fastest 10-yard split in this draft class. What did you see when you dug into the film?
I love that you talked about that 10-yard split. One of his best traits and probably his highest level trait is that 10-yard acceleration. And that's actually one thing he shares with Rashee Rice. Rice is not a downfield burner, but man, he accelerates, whether it's with the ball in his hand or on slants, ins, and he was even starting to harness that into some of these goes before he got hurt. That's Royals. Same thing. He is not a jitterbug quickness guy, but he accelerates well, whether it's off the line of scrimmage, whether it's out of a break, whether it's right after he catches the ball. He really has that turbo button in a way that a lot of guys don't. It's a high-level trait, and it's one that he weaponizes pretty well. That's one reason why he made so many big plays. I think they're trying to add some explosion to the offense. It'll be tough for him to see the field this year. I think fans need to be ready to see Juju Smith-Schuster get 40 to 50% of the snaps again. I would be surprised if he didn't. Now, we'll see. Them letting Justin Watson walk is like, well, that's interesting because they clearly have a plan for like the first 3. But Andy is always going to want guys that do the things that Juju Smith-Schuster does. And if he thinks he's got enough speed everywhere else on the field, he'll be willing to sacrifice it for a guy that goes exactly where he's supposed to go. Royals can supplant that by being a superior outside wide receiver. That's one thing that's great with his film is 80, 90% of his snaps were on the outside. You just don't see that a lot with these guys coming out of college. He's got good ball skills. He tracks the ball well as it's coming in over his head. Again, he's got that acceleration ability. He's pretty slippery after the catch. Most of the highlight reels you'll see of him are these big yak plays. And that's a big deal. Like the Chiefs lacked explosion last year. So anyone who can make a play with the ball in their hands, they need more of that. They need more speed. To me, Royals, the idea of Royals for me would be someone who replaces someone like Justin Watson. And even though he maybe doesn't have, I don't think he has quite the same top gear Watson has, but in that first 20 yards, he's much more explosive. And that's where the Chiefs, snap after snap, including in the Super Bowl, they just had too many guys that took too long to gear up. And getting a guy out there with a little more explosion would be great. It'll be tough. He'll have to, probably do some special teams, have to do some of that stuff because the Chiefs have a pretty clear plan, in my opinion, of their first 4. They obviously have Brown. My hope is they're going to implement the plan they had for him in the first place last year. But you've got Rice as your wide receiver 1, who, if he's healthy, he's going to get 160 targets this year. But, Rice, Worthy, Brown, in a perfect world, Worthy manages to surpass Brown as a receiver and all that fun stuff. And then after that, you've got Juju Smith-Schuster as the veteran guy who knows the system well. And if you're Royals, you're really trying to jam yourself in there in that 5th spot, also as the best boundary guy, comfortable with contact at the line, pretty strong guy, doesn't get bothered too much. He does need to learn to keep his hands free. He'll occasionally get too engaged in, trying to knock the defender aside where you don't have to. You brush him off and go. Because even if you knock the defender, backwards, you're still slowing yourself up so much you're disrupting your route. So I like this film. I'll say it in a more complimentary way than I did with Norman Lott. I see the vision, and I see the vision fitting in a multitude of ways with what the Chiefs like their receivers to do.